Well, here is a public service announcement. Walmart is giving out free turkeys today to anyone who can outrun security. Well, happy Thanksgiving to all of you. In America, Thanksgiving is such a great day for food, family, and football. But of course, for us as Catholics, followers of Jesus Christ, in addition to food, family, and football, there is faith, the most important of all the aspects of Thanksgiving, where we spend a national day to thank God for all of our blessings. When Abraham Lincoln established this special day for America in 1863, he could have chosen a Monday, for example, Labor Day, Memorial Day. Why didn't he choose a Monday? Why did he choose a Thursday? And I believe it's because of his Christian values of thinking of Holy Thursday. That is when the first Mass was said by Jesus on Holy Thursday. And the very word for Holy Communion that the Church chose is Eucharista, which means thanksgiving. The very word Eucharist means the thanksgiving, because the sacrifices of Mass is a sacrifice of not only praise and worship and honor of God, but the Mass is a sacrifice of thanksgiving, where we honor and thank God. And when we think of the history of Thanksgiving, all of us are familiar with Plymouth Rock and the first Thanksgiving in the year 1620. But even 56 years before that Thanksgiving was a Catholic Thanksgiving. And that occurred on the Blessed Mother's birthday on September 8th in the year 1565. Again, 56 years before Plymouth Rock. And this first Thanksgiving was a Mass. It was held in St. Augustine, Florida. Many of you have been there. You've been to the place where the very first Mass was said in our country. It's a beautiful Mass, that beautiful church that is there, a shrine. And we know that Father Grijalis said the very first Mass on our soil. They sang the Te Deum. They honored the crucifix. Over 500 soldiers, 200 sailors, 100 families, many of the local Native Americans as well, attended this Mass, and then there was a great feast. So really that is the first Thanksgiving on our soil. Another one occurred in the year 1598, and 23 years before Plymouth Rock, and that was when Father Juan, a Franciscan, said Mass north of the Rio Grande, modern-day Texas, where the Mass of Thanksgiving was said, followed by a big feast of duck and goose and fish. So again, 23 years before Plymouth Rock. So we think of the Catholic roots of this beautiful holiday of Thanksgiving. Then, of course, there was the 1620 with the Mayflower, and after only half the people survived the very first winter, thanks to Squanto and many of the other Native American Indians, the Pilgrims were saved, and this great Thanksgiving that we honor today. But it's interesting when you read the history of Squanto, he became a Catholic. He was a Patuxent native, and sadly he was kidnapped when he was about 12 years of age, taken to Spain. But of course the Pope denounced the slave trade. Pope Paul VI condemned the slave trade, and Franciscans ransomed Squanto and educated him, and he was catechized and baptized. Squanto became a Catholic and then went to England for 5 years. He learned English perfectly, and he worked at the shipyard with a desire to come back to the New World. He eventually made it back to Newfoundland and worked his way down to Plymouth Rock, where he helped to save the Pilgrims by teaching them how to hunt and trap and to fish, and how to grow their crops using fertilizers and fish, and growing the squash and corn and beans and all of these things. So Squanto, the great Catholic, was a great hero of this Thanksgiving on Plymouth Rock. So again, we think of the Catholic roots of this great national feast day. And when Abraham Lincoln declared it, he said this is a day of thanksgiving to God, and also in asking God to forgive the transgressions of our people and of ourselves. So it's both a day of repentance, a day of asking for forgiveness from God for what we have not done right in our country, and also to thank God for all the blessings that he has given us. So I encourage you today to really realize that the Mass is the greatest way in which we can thank God. So we attend Mass. In fact, in a few moments, we'll hear these words. It is truly right and just, our duty and our salvation, always and everywhere, to give you thanks. We say that at every Catholic Mass, always and everywhere, to give you thanks. That is our duty, our salvation, and it is truly right and just to do that. So I encourage you, make the Mass the very center of your life. Advent begins on Sunday. I encourage you, as a good resolution, to come to daily Mass, if at all possible, during the holy season of Advent. That is really the greatest way to thank God for all the blessings of your life, to ask God for what you need, and to grow closer to him as we prepare for his birth on Christmas.